I am speaking with Amina Mir, who is a professor of sociology at Carleton University and whose research involves skin whitening. So first off, what is skin whitening?
Skin whitening is a practice or an application of various products, primarily chemicals, extracts from natural products, but at the end it is using something cosmetic or chemical that actually will alter the appearance of the skin. But unlike, let's say, cosmetics, something you apply like a paint, skin whitening, as it is understood, actually acts on the melanin. In other words, the pigment on the skin. So it either removes it or suppresses it, or both. In other words, it has both a suppression capacity and also slewing off or literally bleaching out the pigment of your skin.
Okay, interesting. And so I kind of want to now look at cultural differences with regards to skin whitening. So what would you say to somebody that says, well, for example, the geisha of Japan had their own practice of skin whitening that seems to predate colonialism. So can kind of a skin whitening have different permutations in different cultures? Tell me about that.
Well, I hear the geisha phenomenon many times, but the geisha culture is not written on a stone. The aesthetic values of the time of the geisha have changed as the aesthetic practice of women in the West have changed. In the middle of this 15, 14, 16 Renaissance era, alabaster look was the desired color among white middle classes. Often the practice involved using very dangerous chemicals such as lead, wafers, mercury, and other products that would actually make the skin look ash color white, but at the end poison the users. So that evolved, and modern cosmetics have replaced those extremely deadly products among white women. So in fact, that no culture, whether it's the geisha or the European Renaissance, is static. Cultures change, aesthetic practices change. So the idea that somehow the geisha culture is the reason why skin whitening in Japan is a multi-billion-dollar market, where majority of the models that are used as the face of this multicultural, multinational corporations are quote unquote Caucasian models, and that the primary players in the Asian market are Western corporations, does not explain some sort of ancient, historical, color for preference for alabaster skin by among certain groups among the Asian or Japanese women using not modern cosmetics or biotechnologies, but maybe rice extracts or natural products. So I think these are red herrings in terms of trying to explain away Western-driven, multiculturally, multi-dimensional and giant corporations-driven globalization of skin whitening into some sort of idiosyncratic local cultural practices is not credible.
Mm-hmm. And can you just kind of give like a brief summary of the state of the skin whitening industry right now? So from what I understand, it's a global industry, and maybe there's different permutations based on whether it's marketed in a Western country versus a so-called third world country, even in terms of the harshness of the formulation and its marketing.
First and foremost, the most striking aspect of skin whitening is who are promoting this product. Overwhelming majority of the corporations, the top 50 corporations that are involved in the marketing of skin whitening, are based in the United States. Outside of the United States, among the top leaders are Shiseido, based in Japan, L'Oreal based primarily headquartered in France. Outside of that, overwhelming majority of corporations behind skin whitening are American corporations. And the market itself was actually industrialized in the United States. So by and large, skin whitening is by and large American market, American industry. Whereas the outside of the United States, it's an export market. It's a market based on selling and marketing Western aesthetics and sellable whiteness as a commodity, like any other commodity. So we need to separate between the users and the producers. For instance, let's take India, for instance, which is one of the biggest market for skin whitening. And yet the corporations that are promoting skin whitening in India, such as Unilever and others, are Western corporations. So one would like to ask if Indians, for instance, are driven by caste history and they are so much driven to consume and find sources of whitening, why India doesn't have its own local industries that produce skin whitening. What is really happening is that local practices, be it being race-based, class-based, aesthetic-based, has been exacerbated and exploited by very clever and very aggressive global marketing of skin whitening. So skin whitening is a part of global diffusion of whiteness, like, other images, such as Hollywood films, such as the internet, such as, social media. It is by far a Western phenomenon. And they are marketed to others in the form of participating in globalization, participating in global beauty, participating in modernity. And actually, these terms are used often when these products are marketed to women, especially in Pacific Asia, in Southeast Asia. Africa is a different story. Africa receives the low end of this product. By far, very toxic chemicals are marketed to Africa and often as an illegal product. One of the reasons, I believe, is because whitening your skin is a taboo in most of the African countries. Therefore, it's much easier to market very toxic products under the table in Africa because by and large, whitening your skin is considered to be shameful things. For instance, there is this famous poem, a song by Nigerian famous Nigerian singer Fela Kuti. It's called Yellow Fever, and it's actually quite about shaming African women, Nigerian women with yellow faces, yellow being, bleaching their skin and still have, their black skin. So there is strong cultural shame among Africans to lighten their skin. Therefore, much of the market in Africa, in the skin whitening market in Africa, is an illegal market. And it is actually started also as a market that started at the beginning in South Africa during apartheid, and then spread it to the rest of the continent. So in Africa, it's a different story. It's both illegal and very deadly practice. So it is it's where you see the kind of the low end scale of the skin whitening. Whereas in places like Southeast Asia, you see kind of a high end brands promoted by leading corporations from Procter & Gamble to L'Oreal to Shiseido to Estee Lauder, touting their top brand, triple whitening, quadruple whitening. Whitening is the game, but the promise is whitening that is also safe is the marketing strategies that are used to market this product to Southeast Asia. Africa is a different story. Mm-hmm. Africa is usually the discourse is biomedicalized, and it's a culturally taboo. Therefore, much of the medical literature you see about harmful effects of using skin whitening almost never addresses the multi-billion-dollar skin whitening market promoted by Western corporations and geared toward whitening affluent women in Southeast Asia and also Pacific Asia. What you often see is disfigured faces of Black women on medical journals. So this is usually where the public discourse focuses, and therefore turns the gaze away from the by far the largest skin whitening market in the Pacific Asia. When it comes to white women, it's actually a different story, because when these products are marketed to white women, other terms are used, things like age spots, anti-aging, hyperpigmentation. It's still about fighting pigmented skin, but any kind of racializing or racial sounding terms are avoided. So things like making your skin look brilliant, making your skin look radiant, making your skin look younger. These are the terms that are associated with marketing skin whitening to white women, and usually this is associated with anti-aging. So in other words, anti-aging for white women is anti-pigmentation, because as one ages, one accumulates the effects of the sun, the effects of life itself, and these things are usually discussed upon and framed in the form of pigmentation, age spots, sunspots, those kind of things. But it is a very huge market. So you can see the same product being marketed to white women as anti-aging, and to Southeast Asian and East Asian women as skin whitening. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of there is also that kind of clever niche marketing strategies that are often used. And people who want to, oppose these things because they think, and they correctly think, these things have colorism and racist and sexist implications, usually focus primarily on African women and African bodies, because these are the disfigured bodies you see on medical journals, on the media, on social media, and usually, therefore, the language used surrounds around Black women who are just want to be white and then ended up being disfigured, and then it becomes a question of public health, a question of risk management, a question of ethics, and marketing skin whitening as a kind of a global commodity to women in affluent part of the global South just does not get much attention.
Mm-hmm. So you briefly mentioned at one point social media, and that's kind of the aspect that I wanted to analyze in my submission. And so with regards to, for example, there's a new application called TikTok, and its reach is actually quite large. So it has roughly 2 billion active users, and the skin whitening market, you can correct my number, but what I read online is that it has the revenue is 10 billion annually. So when you pair 2 billion active users with a 10 billion market, the aspect that I kind of wanted to highlight is the fact that in TikTok, when users try to post a photo or a video, there's actually an inbuilt filter which whitens their skin without their knowledge. So there are separate filters which actually openly advertise that they lighten the skin. But what users don't often realize is that the inbuilt camera already has a filter which alters their appearance to lighten their skin and also make their features more European. So do you have any comments in terms of like a young generation on this type of application?
First, the figure you mentioned, 10 billion, skin whitening market based on my 25 years of research is higher than $300 billion, not 10 billion. Wow. It is, the skin whitening market is by far closer to Boeing and Microsoft combined. So this is the irony of it. What you need to pay attention is how it gets marketed. So if you look at things like anti-aging, cosmeceuticals, brighteners, So the idea that skin whitening is a $10 billion is not correct. Probably it might be under skin brighteners, or maybe skin lighteners, or maybe skin whiteners, or maybe skin bleachers. So if you cue those phrases on Google prompt, you might get a different market reports. Mm-hmm. But the overall market in the skin whitening is by far based on my 25 years of research. I wrote my PhD for the University of Toronto about this topic. I wrote 2 books about this topic. I wrote many academic journals and also journalistic work about this topic. I'm very familiar with it. The reason why the numbers seem smaller and is because skin whitening is unregulated market. It's one of the most amazing thing about the skin whitening is it is unregulated. It's literally a market without oversight. So here is the it's kind of like the market figures. In terms of these inbuilt features in TikTok that alters people's embodiment and features, so to make them look both lighter and Caucasian appearance. I am not surprised by that, and it's not actually limited to TikTok. Many other features, artificial intelligence, a whole bunch of other beauty filters do have also similar inbuilt features. And this is important because what is important is marketing what's called the global look. Skin whitening is a part of globalization and homogenization and commodification of beauty. And when you put all those 3 things together, they mean marketing, globalizing, and also decontextualizing, dehistoricizing, and depoliticizing the very features you're talking about. The Caucasian appearance, the European appearance, the lightening of the skin. This are reduced as kind of style, something people want, something look nice, something look that is cool. So in other words, those things become just marketing. And they, unfortunately, the younger generation, they don't have historical understanding of craniology or phrenology or scientific racism or eugenics. They don't understand those things. They are not scholars in those things. They see those features such as cool. So this is the kind of the marketing appeal of using those technologically mediated ways of altering people's embodiment and making them look different, but ironically different in a homogenizing way. Because from what you're telling me, those images don't become more African looking or more maybe other ethnic looking, or there are no like many options. They seem to be promoting a particular kind of altering the body, lighter skin and European looking. So that cannot be accidental.
Absolutely. So do you think these filters, these inbuilt filters can actually boost the skin whitening market so people want to look more like their filters?
The filters do 2 things that are not new, but going back to maybe 17th century. They lighten the skin and they make the person's features look European. That's going back not to kind of a dystopia feature, but back to the age of craniology and phrenology. So what you really see is that, yes, we might have advanced technologies, but when you look at the kind of the images that they are promoting or the technology inbuilt, because remember, this technology is not magic, it's programmed by people. So never forget that these are technologies programmed by people. It cannot be something that happens by magic. So what I really see is that in this age of 21st century, what I really see is recuperation and reclaiming and rebranding 17th century idea about craniology, phrenology, scientific racism. In other words, if you even look at the idea about racial differences, racial categories. Look how they all started. Look at the work of people like Linnaeus, people like craniologists. It was all based on imaginary idea about racial difference, evolutionary difference, certain facial shapes, skin color, symmetry. These were the ideas about, the superior race versus the inferior race. Today, what you read is this whole thing, 400 years of scientific racism, has now been recollaborated and reimagined through advanced technologies. But what are they producing? They're producing familiar images either.
So it's sort of just an update of it's sort of just an update of what maybe happened in previous eras, but just with the new technology.
Exactly, they're updating, they're recycling and rebranding. They are not creating images that are not. So what I would see is look at the familiarity. Whatever those softwares produce, they look familiar.
Oh, so it's sort of like referencing a type of imagery.
Referencing a familiar, idealized imagery, yes.
I see, okay.
Those softwares have to be trained, and they're trained as a kind of prototype. Like, for instance, I see, people saying, you can use artificial intelligence to eliminate, racial disparity in the medicine. And I ask my students, well, how do you know that artificial intelligence can reduce or ameliorate racial difference? How does artificial intelligence knows your race? This is kind of like which comes first, the chicken or the egg. So those racial differences, those imaginary differences are already encoded. So those software, those TikTok or whatever other mechanisms that have to be trained, they have to recognize something. They have to recognize. So in other words, those tools are trained to recognize. So there is some kind of paradigmatic. They work in the opposite, negative or positive. I don't know if you ever seen the film. It's too old probably for your generation, but there is a film called Gattaca. I encourage you to watch Gattaca because Gattaca is the forerunner to what we are seeing today. This is about the imaginary feature of perfection. And perfection goes back to what's considered to be the higher race, the more beautiful face, the more evolved race, the more the evolutionary advances. So it is not accidental that the prototypes, for instance, there was 2016, if I'm correct, there was the first time when purely artificial intelligence rated beauty. And guess what? The applications did not like people with dark skin. Well, how did they discover dark skin is not good?
That's interesting. A tangent would be talking about dating applications and how people with darker skin color usually do not have success there, but that would be a tangent. Anyway, so I wanted to bring it back to the law because, of course, I'm studying.
No, it's not tangent because whether it's a TikTok or a darker skin, if you can modify your skin, then you can modify other features in your body because the skin alone is the most important organ. But the issue is this, features, nose shape, eyes, hair texture, skin color, they are continuum of things that have been historically talked about, written about, analyzed. You can look at what Thomas Jefferson had to say about Black women's skin or hair. That's very important. These technologies that you're talking about, they are not new in terms of the values, the things they recognize. This is all about recognition. Recognizing something as bad or recognizing as good. So this software programmed to recognize something either as a positive or as negative.
I see. Now, bringing it back to the legal discussion, because of course I'm studying the law, what I was curious about is, so for example, this TikTok filter, it doesn't disclose to the users that it's actually whitening their skin or making their features more European. And this is on the normal filter. So there are explicitly advertised filters, but even the normal setting, it actually also alters the skin color. So with regards
because the norm is the white norm, these technologies, it has also been known through things like photography. It has been known for quite a bit, for a while now.
But I just want to drill down on the concept of like consent, right? Because with AI generated imaging and technology, there's a lot of nefarious things that can be done. So I'll take a separate example. For example, voice spoofing. So somebody can kind of take somebody's voice and call their parents, pretending to be them.
This is happening.
And then create like a fake kidnapping scenario and demand a ransom, for example.
Well, but then you're asking a different question.
No, but I'm just talking about like from a legal aspect, like consent in terms of alteration from artificial intelligence. So that's altering or using the voice. But then even with revenge porn, like people can take the head of somebody and digitally,
it is already happening.
Yeah, put it on somebody else's body and create a fake scenario. So I
understand. So you're asking me a number of questions. One is the intended use, okay? And there is the nefarious use. So people who program this type of malleable technologies will tell you, well, that's kind of the nefarious use of this technology. And they will tell you the positive use of technology. So in that case, you cannot really take on the makers of technologies that have those features as nefarious. What they can tell you is, we don't make the nefarious use of it. We just make the good use of it. Well, Idil, people can make the same thing about nuclear weapons. Well, you can have a nuclear technology, but some people will use it to kill people. So technology always had this kind of we just researchers, we just do the research and we hope we don't decide the application. So the programmers might say, well, we just we're not the ones who are making a nefarious use of this technology. So therefore it only becomes an issue about the prosecutorial aspect of it, becomes to prosecute those who make nefarious use of these technologies. But it won't address the potentiality of those kind of technologies. So in other words, it's a dicey space, because the makers of those technology can come up with a million ways in which those technologies can be used, for positive ways. Every technological innovations create both a positive outcomes and negative outcomes. And then the next kind of dialectic happens. The people will try to address those problems, and then they come up with the solutions. But the solutions often create different problems. And this has been the case throughout the history of technology, and this will continue. And the law definitely has a role to play.
And so just one last final comment. Do you have anything to add in terms of how there's like a nexus between some of this new AI technology and some older industries or problematic archetypes, such as white supremacy or the skin bleaching industry, so that when they're paired, for example, how TikTok has an inbuilt feature with no opportunity to opt out for users, or no even disclosure, which lightens their skin. So like, is there anything that you have to add in terms of, making sure that the next generation doesn't kind of sleepwalk through this and just allow this to continue?
Absolutely, because why a technology is allowed to alter my skin pigmentation or facial features, but it does not allow me to reject that. That tells you the technology embodies certain standards, certain basic features is considered to be quote unquote normal and neutral. When that normal and neutral is the basis of white supremacy, then definitely there is a problem. And there are people who are writing about it. Maybe you want to look at books like Race After Technology and other people who are writing about this area. There is already an emerging scholarship that actually identified the relationship between white supremacy, venture capitalism, and the kind of proprietary and kind of new era of possessive individualism that are becoming highly interwoven and extremely conservative politics. So the linking or the themes that you are mentioning has already been noted in the literature. And yes, this is something we need to confront.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Hoya. I think we came up with some interesting commentary about the nexus between new technology, previous structures of white supremacy, and how they kind of both perpetuate each other, how they kind of work together and kind of exacerbate each other, and how we kind of have to pay attention to them, and that sometimes it's not really something new, but it's kind of an old trick dressed up for a new era.
It's an old trick, and unfortunately, the new generation, they like the images, but they lack the kind of background knowledge of how those images came to be normalized. Because one of the key things you want to pay attention is that those images have histories, but when they are shared through the internet, they are shared as something wonderful, as something without history. So young people consume those images without understanding them. And I often notice among some of my students, they will cut an image from the internet and include it on an essay without mentioning where the image came from. And I usually insist, trace where the image came from. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but just a few months ago, artificial intelligence was trying to, some company, I don't remember, I think it was Google, I'm not so sure, was trying to create some kind of equitable or, maybe, non-gendered ways of sharing images. And what do you have it? Among the images that were produced by that kind of strategy were Black people and other non-white people with the Nazi uniforms. So you can really see how those images and how those technologies can recirculate or recycle dominant ways of both white supremacy, but also other ways of marketing whiteness. There is a long history. Nothing sells like whiteness. This has been established in the marketplace. Whiteness sells.
Interesting.
Whether it's a visual or historical or discursive. Whiteness is a very powerful marketing tool.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Hoya. I think we really got everything.
White supremacy, but also other ways of marketing whiteness. There is a long history. Nothing sells like whiteness. has been established in the marketplace. Whiteness sells.
Interesting.
Whether it's a visual or historical or discursive, whiteness is a very powerful marketing tool.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Hoya. I think we really got everything we needed.